and welcome to the first ever episode of Free Speech Central. I'm Jo Marney, and this is my cheeky friend.
Lembit Opik. Thanks for that, Joe. We're going to start fighting already. And the objective of this programme is to give you the chance to have an insight to some of the more controversial characters all around the world. And Joe, I think we've got quite an interesting chap with us today.
Yeah, we're coming in with a bang. We really are. I'm really excited for this one, Lembit. It's our first ever guest, and I'm very, very pleased to welcome Mr. Tommy Robinson to the show. Hi, Tommy.
Controversial is an understatement, actually.
We don't want to scare you off, and we don't want you to scare our viewers off either. But thanks so much for doing this, Tommy. As Joe says, you are definitely outspoken, always in the news, and feared by the state by the looks of it, Tommy. How's that feel?
How's it feel? Great. Absolutely great. No, do you know what feels good is that I've been active in this for 15 years. In the early days, it was very difficult. It was quite a lonely place trying to discuss the options and the topics that we do. And now it's not so lonely. Now it's pretty mainstream. Now I don't receive much. I'm about to say much. I had a big news story this week, but much negative reception when I'm out on the streets. So things have definitely changed and turned. And people who I sat down and done Trigonometry's podcast today. They wouldn't have sat down with me 12 months ago or 18 months ago. There's been a shift and a change, not in anything I've said or the way I carry myself, but in the public opinion and the public mood of the nation.
Joe's got some fairly focused questions. Can I just ask one question? Why do you think that's changed? What's changed, Tommy? Is it you or is it public opinion? No,
it's the fact that I used to talk about issues that I saw in Luton, and they were confined to towns like Luton, Birmingham, Bradford, these sort of towns which didn't affect the whole country. So it wasn't many people's problem. With the migrant invasion, crisis, whatever you want to call it, the hotels are now being filled in pretty much every town and city. So towns and areas and communities that weren't affected are now feeling the fear that we feel. They're now worried for their daughters, for safety, for security, due to social media. Again, stories are shared. I think in the last 12 days, we've had 11 sexual assaults, rapes and attacks by migrants, 11 out of the last 12 days. So now it gets shared, it gets publicised. Remember, there was a big period there of total censorship where people like myself or people talking about this issue, you couldn't talk about these issues. You were censored, you were deleted. And if you weren't censored and deleted, they had the public in a state of fear, and justifiably so, because you lose your job, you get cancelled, you get kicked out. Even now where we're at, it's still not free. When was the last time you heard someone say we live in a free country? When was the last time you heard that? People don't say it anymore because they realise we don't live in a free country. So there are consequences of your speech. Unfortunately, many people lose their jobs, they lose their careers, and I don't blame them for being scared of speaking, but there's definitely been a shift. And I'd say something momentous. A revolution is brewing in Great Britain. It used to be certain elements or certain people that would be speaking out. It's now the mums. Yeah, mums have had enough. Everyday mainstream population are speaking openly, which is very encouraging to watch. I watch interviews outside these hotel migrant protests, and I guess we fitted the narrative. Maybe we fitted the narrative of working class. I was young when I started the English Defence League. I was a young man. I'm a very different man to that than I am now. I'm 42, father of 3. We grow up, we mature. So I understand some of the criticism that I would have faced in my activism. I was a young, angry man, and I was angry with the state of my country.
Yeah, that's something I wanted to ask you about, actually, Tommy, is how you sort of came about to get into political activism. Because I know you were in, was it the BNP to start with, and then you went on to the English Defence League for a while. So what was it that sort of really made you feel the need to get into politics in that way to start with?
I grew up in Luton. Luton's 30 miles north of London. When I was born in 1982, there was one mosque. There's now 45. So I've seen the difference, the change, the effect it has on freedom, culture. You know that a terminology now that is part of British discussion every day is two-tier policing. Well, it was for us because I saw it my whole life. So we've been speaking about that for 20 years. We've been trying to highlight it for 20 years. My first leaflet I ever made, which was front page of my local newspaper, which I used in a presentation at Oxford University to show people. In 2015, I gave a presentation at Oxford University. So I went to my local library. I dug up the leaflet. I organised a demonstration when I was 20 called Ban the Luton Taliban. And in that leaflet, my rhetoric has never changed. It said whites and blacks are being racially and religiously targeted in Luton. They're using heroin as a weapon against our community to prostitute our daughters and kids and put them into paedophilic gangs. That's now called grooming. Yeah? And what we was asking in the leaflet and on the front page of the paper is, why don't the police do anything? How come they crush us or our community, but they leave them alone? They're literally given free rein. Extremist groups, Al Mujahideen, who are now a prescribed terrorist organisation, were free to operate for decades in our town. They were on the streets, they were radicalising, they were recruiting, they had pace tables set up, they were operating in the mosques, operating in the university. Remember, this is before 7/7, so before any terrorist atrocity. They were free to do this. So the reason I started my activism is because I was born in Luton. I witnessed things at my school. I witnessed hostility from the Islamic community. I saw the difference, the segregation, Muslim playgrounds, non-Muslim playgrounds, even down to the dinner hall. You'd have all the Muslims sat in the corner and everyone else sat integrated together. So there was zero integration, zero assimilation. We didn't do that as kids in Luton. That wasn't our problem. But I spoke about these things. And obviously in 2004, when I organised this first protest, it was after the Beslan school massacre. And I watched as Chechnyan jihadists took over a school in Russia. The families come outside the school. I can still see it now. The families come outside the school. The mums are outside the school. The terrorists have got the kids inside, and they started butchering them. And the mums fall to their knees, and they're holding their heads in their hands as they're listening to their children be butchered. When I watched that, you know, we've all had a light bulb moment. Everyone's had that moment. What was it that woke you up? That woke me up. I saw that, and I tried to think, this isn't one man that's done this. There's a whole group of people sharing the same ideology. What is that ideology? I started down the rabbit hole, started looking into the groups, understanding Islam. You're right about the BNP. 2004, at this time, when I held my first protest, I looked for who was talking about these issues. No one but the BNP. I then joined the BNP, and if there's a leaked membership from 2004 to say 2010, I joined for 1 year. I didn't rejoin. We set up a meeting in Luton. I was a young, active, I was in the Luton football element of young men that went to football together. And I went to a BNP meeting in the town. And when we got there, they said, he can't come in, he can't come in. They're on about the non-white lads in our group. And I didn't know that. I didn't know Nick Griffin was the founder of National Front or ex-National Front. I didn't know all these things. On the BNP's website, it had 10 policies that you'd have to be a moron to agree with. Now, after that meeting, there's a Searchlight magazine, which was a far-left magazine, run a story saying when the Luton MIGs, which is the football group of Luton supporters, fell out with the BNP. Because from that point on, we didn't allow the BNP to operate in our town. Because we understood then what they were like, total racist. Luton is a very diverse town. It's one of the most diverse towns in Europe. Most of the people I line up, if you line up my friends, they're sons of immigrants or immigrants. White, English, or a minority. There's never been a racial divide, and there's never been a racial problem. And I've never spoke about race. My problem and divide comes through religious lines, and that's where we're at. So that was my upbringing in Luton. I witnessed all these problems. My cousin was a victim of grooming gangs. I'd seen so much. Then our Soldiers' Homecoming Parade happened, and enough was enough. It was the final straw when we stood up, set up a group called United People in Luton, which then progressed into a national organisation called the English Defence League, which got a lot of flack and a lot of negative headlines at the time.
It's funny you mentioned that, because it's one thing I wanted to ask you is, some people would say, why can't we all just sort of coexist as one group in a multi-cultural country? What's the problem with that? And I know some people kind of mix up religion with race, and obviously they're two completely different things, aren't they? They say that you're racist for bringing attention to these cultural clashes, which are really clashes of values, aren't they, rather than clashes of different races or different skin colours.
I'd say we can. Can and we do. And when David Cameron, 2010, at the height of the EDL, he came out and made a statement day before our biggest demonstration, our Luton homecoming, and he said that multiculturalism has failed. Angela Merkel said the same. For me, I still see that as a weak, cowardly way of saying Islam's failed. Because the Sikh community, the Jewish community, the Hindu community, all the other minorities that have come to this country haven't failed. The Irish didn't fail, the Italians didn't fail. Any other communities come into this country, embraced it and love it. The failure has come from Islam. Islam has failed. If we took Islam out of the UK now, get rid of it, totally get rid of Islam and out of the UK, that means we don't have the Islamic rape gangs. It means we don't have FGM. It means we don't have 40,000 Muslims on a terror watch list. In fact, we don't actually have terrorism in the UK.
What do you think it is about Islam that is such a problem?
I think you have to understand the ideology of Islam. You have to understand who Muhammad was. Look at Muhammad, look at Jesus. Jesus Jesus said turn the other cheek, and Muhammad beheaded 600 people in one day. These are facts. Muhammad promoted total supremacy. It's an intolerant ideology against non-Muslims. So, but that doesn't mean, again, just so people understand, I grew up in Luton. Some of the best people I met growing up are Muslims. Yeah, that doesn't mean every Muslim is following Islam to literal interpretation. Separate Muslims from Islam. Muslims are people. If you hate people, it's bad. But it's your God-given right to have an idea on Islam, especially as we now have 4 million followers of Islam in the UK. We certainly have to look at who they see as the moral perfect example. Muhammad married a 6-year-old, had sex with her when she was 9, beheaded people, raped people, robbed them, pillaged. This is not a good moral compass for 4 million people in the UK. No wonder we've got a problem.
You could say that if you chose the bad parts of the Bible, you could actually justify the Crusades and a lot of other stuff too. Is it possible that what you're really talking about is the use of religion, in this case Islam, as you're describing, to pursue very human bad behavior, if you like, but you could do the same about Christianity? Or do you think that's not a fair comparison?
No, it's not. You couldn't do that with Jesus. If you lived your life as Jesus did, you're going to kill no one, you're going to murder no one. If you live your life as Muhammad did, you'd have gone and joined ISIS. That's the reality. You'd have been out there pillage. When people say Islamist, now we've introduced this word Islamist, and that's simply for people to feel comfortable criticising Islam. Now, when they say Islamist and separate it as a political ideology, I just ask, was the Prophet Muhammad an Islamist? Yes, he was. He enforced Islam on the population with the sword. He was an Islamist. So when we talk about, and as well, whether it be 4 times as many British Muslims went to join ISIS than have ever joined the British military. 4 times. 40,000 British Muslims on a terror watch list. 3,000 of them are monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, at a cost of £9 billion. These sorts of figures and these sorts of numbers, they're all right when you've got a 1% population. But as the Islamic demographic keeps doubling, when you get to 6-7% where we're at now, what will this country look like at 20%? When we look at the rape gangs across the country, Muslims make up, 5-6%, which means Muslim men make up 3% of the population. They're responsible for 84% of the convictions of child rape gangs. 30% of the men convicted are called Muhammad. Again, I'm not saying this tars every Muslim. What I'm saying is there is a massive problem. Why are there no Sikh rape gangs? Why are there no Hindu rape gangs? What is it different about this community that tolerates, accepts, and promotes this sort of behaviour? So again, I don't think when we look at ISIS, Al Qaeda, Boko Haram, any of these, the Ayatollah, Iran, look at all these groups. Are they all interpreting it wrong? Because they're all interpreting the same. So again, most Muslims won't take the literal word of the Quran. They don't. Yeah, most Muslims will take their religion like a buffet. They'll take the bits they like and ignore the bits they don't like. The problem comes when they literally take the word of that book in its literal interpretation. So, and behave as Muhammad is. In modern Britain, 2025, people want to behave as a man did 1400 years ago when he was pillaging and raping his way around the world.
Yeah, I think the trouble is as well, Tommy, is that a lot of these people see white Western women like me, or Western girls, like we're sort of 4th-class citizens, as though we deserve anything that we get because we don't dress the same way as they do, because we're not Muslim, and they almost dehumanize us. And that seems to be a huge problem within the Muslim community. And I think that really contributes to these crime figures that you're talking about at the minute.
They dehumanize you because the Quran dehumanizes you, because there's 4 verses in the Quran that specifically tell them that outside of their 4 wives, they can take whatever the right arm possesses, the arm of the sword, and they can take non-Muslim women as sexual war booty, captives. Yeah. So and one of the verses actually say they're blameless. So of course, and of course, that's what Muhammad did. In fact, Muhammad's wife, Sophia, he beheaded 600 Jews in one day. He tortured Kanana, the leader of the Jewish tribe. Again, this is not Tommy Robinson's opinion. This is in the biography of Muhammad by Ibn Ishaq, the most renowned scholar in the Islamic world on the life of Muhammad. This is the behavior of that man. So, of course, and I understand the difficulty in politicians and media. They don't know what to do. What do we do for 4 million Muslims? What do? We don't lie. We don't pretend. And that's unfortunately what many of our politicians have tried to do. They've tried to bury their head. And the reason they've buried their head is because many of their government failures are the reason that these men have been imported in. So they're imported in people from different cultures with different value systems that do not integrate or assimilate. We're now in a situation where our children are being affected. England's being affected, our entire future of our nation and security and stability of this country is now affected. And that is at such a small population. What are we going to do about it? And all I say is tell the truth. I've told the truth. And as I said, I haven't changed my rhetoric. I've been very clear from the start of my activism. It's simply now that many people see what I said. They see the truth. They see that the media lied, politicians lied, government lied, police leaders lied. They all bent the knee, and many of them continue to bend the knee. And unfortunately, Britain is awake. The population are now awake, and they're not just awake, but they're scared. When you've got a scared population who no longer see safety or security for their kids, it's a pretty dangerous situation that we're entering right now.
The majority of Muslims don't commit the kind of crimes you described, though. It's still a minority that does it. Is it possible that when you make these points, you lay yourself open to the kind of criticisms that we all read about you? Oh, he's racist, he's anti-Islam and all this kind of thing. Is it possible that still a relatively small proportion of Muslims are causing this huge problem?
23% of British Muslims want Sharia law in the UK. That's 1.2 million. It's not that, and that's not a small number. If you want to look at the figures for Telford, for the rape gangs, Telford has a 1.7% Muslim population. Out of the Telford rape gangs, the police identified 1,000 victims. 5 of them were murdered. Now, the police identified 200 rapists in Telford. They prosecuted 11, but they identified 200. So out of Telford, if you take the 1.7% Muslim population, you get rid of the under 16s, get rid of the over 70s, you've got 1,000 men. So out of that 1,000 men, 20% of them were raping children. We're not talking a handful here. We're talking massive numbers. The only numbers, what are the 2 cities we've got numbers for? Telford, 1.7% Muslim population. What's the other big one? Rotherham. Rotherham has a 3.7% Muslim population. So out of a 3.7% Muslim population, we had 1,400 children raped in a 16-year period. What do we think it's like in Birmingham or Luton, when it's 50%? Or Oldham, where they've continually shut down the investigation? So I understand the difficulty and people feel uncomfortable. There are many great Muslims, and there's probably many great Muslims that are sickened by this. But how many Muslims over the 30 or 40-year period of these rape gangs, how many Muslims went to the authorities or went to the police and told about the other Muslims? Not one. So in this entire period of rape of a generation of our daughters, not one Muslim their whole communities knew it was going on. Not one of them stepped forward. In fact, what did the Muslim representatives do? If we look at the Rochdale case, Councillor Hussain, the Muslim Labour councillor, went to court and gave a character reference for the rapist. The Muslim ex-mayor of Bolton went to court and gave a character reference for the rapist. Now, when they've done this and they put their names to give a character reference for a man that raped 100 little English children, did he lose his job? No, he was accelerated for his Labour Party. What did the councillor in Jaglia, the Muslim councillor in Rotherham, do? He was part of the gangs. What did the Muslim representative for Labour do in Oldham? He's in jail now as one of the rapists of the gangs. So there has been no protest ever in this country by the Muslim community over the rape of a generation of our daughters. They protest over Gaza. They protest over anything and everything. Yeah, they're on the streets all the time, but they have no disgust. Why don't they? Why don't they? Why don't they care about our daughters being raped? Many of them have a negative opinion, unfortunately. Yeah.
Tommy, I suppose a lot of people would say, what about all of the white British people who commit similar crimes? I mean, obviously, the majority of child abuse crimes are committed by white British people in this country.
Yeah, the majority of the country is white. 90% of the country is white. I think that matches the figures for the paedophile rates. But this is a very different type of gang. This is where fathers, brothers, cousins and work colleagues are raping children together. Something this country's never seen. Usually it's 2 deranged paedophiles meeting up on the internet and sharing their fantasies. This is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 work colleagues raping little 12-year-olds together, queuing up together. This is a whole new mindset this country's never seen. What is it? We need to understand it. Is it Islamic? Is it cultural? You're not even allowed to ask that question. You're not allowed to ask that question. If we look through the figures, look through the people, we know that they're Somalians, we know that they're Iraqis, we know they're Syrians, and the majority are Pakistanis. But what's the common denominator between all of them? They follow Islam. So these sort of statistics, I'll be honest, I don't care how many people get upset or offended or their feelings get hurt by spitting facts at them. I more care about protecting the next generation of British children from being raped. That's the most important thing. If a community wants to get upset because the truth is, there's not been one case in this country of a group of non-Muslims raping a Muslim girl. Not one in the whole country. I challenge anyone to find one. There's not one. And if there had been one, the whole country would burn. The whole country. And if there had been one, the leader of our country, Keir Starmer, Jess Phillips, would all be on their knees saying about how bad it is. But all of a sudden, somehow our daughters are collateral damage. Our daughters don't matter. For their utopia worldview, for their view that all cultures are equal when they're not, for what they're trying to engineer in this country, which is something that doesn't work. It's like mixing oil and water. Now, unfortunately, I think we should just tell the truth. And I know people sometimes get offended, they get upset. I'm at the point where I'm not really bothered, if I'm honest, about their feelings. Just putting it simply. I'm more
I don't think anyone is anymore, Tommy, really.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's. I think we've had enough. I think we've been pushed too far. And we were walking around worried about treading on eggshells, and now it's time to stamp on some feet. We don't care. Right? Your feelings get hurt, well, we're hurting. We're affected. Our daughters are affected. Our women are affected. Do you know what? Women can't walk down the street anymore. They're scared. Do you know, I went to Ireland. I've done a documentary 2 years ago at the start of the migrant invasion of Ireland. And it's called Plantation 2, Rise of the Celts. And this is the problem we have in society. I went and wore a button camera. Yeah? You can watch this documentary at trfilms.co.uk. You can see all of our investigative documentaries there. But I went with a button camera and I walked to Killarney, where they've flooded all the hotels. Yeah? Killarney is one of the most beautiful tourist destinations in the world. Canadians, Americans are all travelling there. They filled all the hotels with migrants, with Somalians, with Syrians. They filled all the hotels. So I walk down the street with a hidden camera and I go up to women, Irish women, and just say, what's it like here now? Like, can I just ask you? And they're all like, oh, we can't walk the streets. I live there. I work there. My husband has to come pick me up to walk down this little road where we've been free all our life. And now we're getting sexually harassed. We're getting attacked. A woman was raped there. This happened. So they're all telling me that. And then I ask the women. So I get it all on hidden camera. And then I say to them, right, I'm a journalist from the UK. Do you mind if I just get you to say this on camera? And it's like, so this is how they feel, but they're not going to tell you how they feel. So when the media walk down the street with their big news crews, they say, everything's fine. No, it's not fine. You've took the safety, you've took the safety of Ireland's women, and Ireland's experienced in 2 years. They've done it quick there. Remember, we've had it like a drip, 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 drip. As I said, last 12 days, there's been 11 rapes and sexual assaults. It's unthinkable.
I think most people in the country would agree with everything that you've just said, but I guess the question is, what do we do about it? And this is where it becomes a bit of a problem matter. And I think some people, maybe like Nigel Farage, would say that maybe your method is a bit too inflammatory, and it kind of gives the mainstream media the ammunition to call us all far right or to call us all thugs or whatever else. What do you think? Is there a middle ground where we can?
I think if Nigel's worried about that, then he's 5 years behind, because no one cares. No one listens to the mainstream media. Who gives a shit what they say in reality? Like, we can do a little video on YouTube now and it's going to get more views than Newsnight. It's like, you're gone. They're dead. They don't matter anymore. Yeah. If I look at my reach and look at our reach and we look at all the podcasters and different hosts, that's where the public are having their debate. They've been left behind. So if Nigel's worried about a few labels, he's never going to bring about the change that's needed. Yeah. Nigel, I saw an interview, which is really worrying, because he said by the Islamic demographic by 2050 in this country is going to become so large that we can't alienate it. Now, I listen and I look at the demographics of Islam in this country, and I don't think we need to wait till 2050. We need to stop that. We cannot, and I saw Nigel make another comment there, he's not bothered about the demographical change. Well, by 2041, white British are a minority. That is unacceptable. It's not racist. It's unacceptable. It would be unacceptable for Nigerians to become a minority in Nigeria, black Nigeria. It would be unacceptable in Japan. Now, unfortunately, I still think Nigel's walking around in the mode of operation 5 years ago, where people were worried. We were still worried. No one cares. So no one cares. I also, I don't know if he's going for the Muslim vote. It looks like he is. It looks like Zia Youssef's pushing for it. I just think, what part of Islamic ideology is it you want us to integrate with? Or
I suppose the question is, how do we actually initiate the change? Because I think we all agree with what you're saying, but how do we actually change things for the better? I think that obviously you are very good at mobilizing people, and that's kind of what you do. You get everyone really fired up, and they should be fired up.
I was a member of parliament for a long time, and this was all happening while I was there. No one in between 97 and 2010 was talking about it. Nobody was talking about the things you were saying, even though we know that countless tens of thousands of girls primarily were being raped. Now, how do you make a change? Nigel Farage is trying to change the government. How do you make this change if you've got an establishment that it seems was quite willing to turn a blind eye to all this for whatever reasons they had, perhaps self-interest and votes?
Well, when the country's ready for political revolution, which it is now, you don't fill the party with the same people who were there doing nothing about it, if I'm honest. The same with the media. So I think that the country's ready. And I think that you're right. If you look at all the years, forget the grooming gangs, forget the rapes, look at the jihad attacks, whether it be 7/7, whether it be Salman Abedi's attack at Manchester, whether it be Westminster Bridge, whether it be Borough Market, whether it be Lee Rigby being beheaded. In all of those attacks, not one member of parliament discussed Islam or the teachings of Islam, or maybe can we talk about Islam in parliament? So since William Gladstone or Churchill, there's not been one single person that's raised that thing. And unfortunately now I see Nigel taking the same stance, which I wish he didn't. I like doing my journalism, and we want to be a cultural movement. I've said that from the start. Yeah, there needs to bring about the change. You're right. You need political manifesto. You need to get into politics. And I wish Nigel would have took the voice of the British public and the concerns of the British public without any appeasement. You know, the Geert Wilders. Geert Wilders just won the Dutch election. Okay, Geert Wilders was 10 years ago when we started in the English Defence League. He was here. Yeah? Now look at him here. He hasn't got there by appeasing at all. He hasn't bent the knee. He hasn't given his chairman seat to a Muslim. He hasn't done anything. Do you think Geert Wilders' party would have a chairman who's a follower of Islam? How are you going to stop the Islamisation of Britain when your lead person, picking everything, follows Islam? And that's not a problem. I'm just saying, how are you going to deal with that? And it should be a conversation that people could have. People aren't leaving. It doesn't seem there's even any free speech, unfortunately, under Farage, because people or councillors within the party are getting kicked out for having truthful discussions. Now, that is not what this country needs. It's the wrong moment. The country's ready for this discussion. That's not extreme. It's not racist. It's not. And when you're talking, yeah, I do mobilise people. But if you look at how we're mobilising people, look at our last 3 events. We had 30,000, then we had over 100,000, and we had 200,000. There were 0 arrests. Well, I've learned a lot. Grown up, learned a lot. I've seen how they infiltrate. I've done 80 national demonstrations. We bring music, we bring festival, we bring families, we bring celebration. Okay, so that's what our events are about. It's about unifying the country, not just unifying. It gives confidence to all of us. Lots of people are finding courage now, and it's great to see. And I should stop being bitter, because I was bitter for quite a while. I was bitter because I think we've been imprisoned, we've been attacked, breakdown of our families. Not just me. School teachers lost jobs who supported us. People have been imprisoned. Many people. You hear my story, but there's probably thousands like me, yeah, who have gone through this process to try and force this discussion. Now the discussion's being had. So I should swallow my bitter pill and accept that it's great that so many voices are having this discussion, because it needs to be had.
My message to the Attorney General, my message to the government and the corrupt courts: freedom of speech. Freedom of speech has never been free, okay? Our forefathers died and bled for freedom of speech. Every single suffering you can imagine, people have sacrificed for freedom of speech.
What would you say is the solution? How do we overcome the issues that you've described? What's the specific action step for this country?
Well, Donald Trump closed his borders. No people last month. None. It's doable like that. As if they can't close our borders with the Royal Navy. As if we can't stop the boats. But the boats are the least of the option. Look at legal migration. Rishi Sunak brought in £1.2 million people. But at the start of, again, I challenge Richard Tice. Reforms policy was 1 in, 1 out. 500,000 British people left last year, which would mean 500,000 coming in. We don't need that. That cannot be. And what would we do? Then we do need mass deportations. These are not asylum seekers. They're fake asylum seekers because they come through 16 safe countries. Now, if the incentives are there for them to keep coming, it's like human trafficking. It's organised. They're literally picked up off the coast and brought into our country, then put in hotels. So we're expected as a British public, you can't get a dentist appointment. Your mum and dad and your nan and granddad are freezing their asses off and can't afford their heating because Labour took the money away. And whilst they're doing that, 3 or 4 meals a day are going to Syrians, Afghanis and Iraqis. And I'm sorry, but as the British government, your job, first and foremost, is to protect British people, not Afghanis, not Somalis. So they could bring in policies that would prevent the need or the drive. They could make it, if any of you come into our country illegally, you will never get citizenship. You will only ever be detained. You will be deported. There will be mass deportations of all illegal immigration in this country. It's not difficult. They make out like it's big difficult, but they do that because there's no will and no courage by any of them to go through. Because if you did go through what's needed, if Nigel Farage started telling the truth about Islam, he'd have to live in a bomb shelter like Geert Wilders did. Geert Wilders has 24 hours a day, 7 days a week protection. He cannot go anywhere. And that's because he has stood up on principle and challenged the biggest threat.
Are you worried about any threats to you, Tommy? Because you obviously very outspoken about Islam. Do you ever get any threats against you?
Do you know Salman Mamika? Did you know Salman Mamika? Salman Mamika was a friend in Sweden who got executed whilst I was in custody. Live assassination. No one's been arrested. The hit was put on him from Turkey and Iraq because he was speaking out. He's burning the Quran. He was an Iraqi Christian refugee. They let him get assassinated. So, unfortunately, when we look at Charlie Hebdo, after Charlie Hebdo, every newspaper in this country and in the world should have run that cartoon on the front cover. They should have took the need away. So, I don't fear Muslims per se or jihad or attacks. I fear the state. I fear the state. The state are the biggest oppressors. The biggest worry that I have is the false charges, the locking up. I had an incident this week, and I just done a podcast this morning, trigonometry, and they said, "But you've been in a lot of violent confrontations, Tommy." I said,
"We'll get onto that in a bit." But I just wanted to ask you, as you brought it up, a bit about your time in prison. What was that like? Because you've been in prison. What is it? Is it 2 times now, or
5, 6?
5 times.
5, 6. But again, it's all for the activism. Or the most recent one, I got an 18-month prison sentence for a film.
Yeah,
I made. No one was arguing factually what was in the film was incorrect. In fact, the film was just a combination of witness testimonies and school records, and the government didn't want anyone to see it. And they didn't want anyone to see it because they spun a lie to the whole world and fed a load of bullshit to the public. And they're probably doing that every day in, day out. And I showed through covert recordings that all the school teachers have been given non-disclosure agreements, and the council, led by a Muslim, had paid all the school teachers to prevent them from telling the truth. So this open border bullshit story could be spread and the British public could be lied to. Now, that film got me 18 months in prison. I spent 7 months on solitary confinement. It wasn't good. It obviously wasn't good. I still don't feel right now. I've had problems from it. I had problems the last time from solitary confinement in 2018.
So did you spend the whole time of that sentence in solitary?
I spent the whole time in solitary. I went into Woodhill prison and left without seeing another person.
Why did they put you in solitary confinement, Tommy?
Well, they said for my safety. It was a civil offence I was in for, remember? So a civil offence. So I was in for a civil offence, which should mean you go to an open prison, a decaf facility, where you go out and work all day and you go home. You go home, yeah. You go home half the time when you're not actually locked up. You don't have a lock to your cell. But they said that my safety. So for my safety, they moved me to HMP Woodhill, which is a maximum security facility with a 40% Muslim population. Remember, Muslims only make up 5-6% in the UK. 40% of Woodhill prison is Islamic. 50% of them are serving life for murder. So they put me there for a civil offence and then used the excuse, well, you'll get killed in here, so we're going to put you on solitary confinement. Now, Axel Rudy Cabana has not spent a day on solitary confinement. Salman Abedi's brother has not spent a day on solitary confinement. None of them are on solitary confinement. So we have a thing called the Mandela Rule in Europe as well. And the European Court of Human Rights has the Mandela Rule, which means you can only be held in solitary confinement for 14 days, because after 14 days, it starts frying your head and it's negative impact on your mental health. And the only people that can override that is the government. So every 42 days, Shabina Mahmood signed the documentation to justify my solitary confinement. And that lasted 7 months. And obviously, the whole time I was in there, I was panicked, I was stressed, because I was panicked and stressed about how I am going to be when I get out. And when I got out, again, I have faced problems. Just speaking honestly, I faced problems. Obviously, last week you saw an incident in London with regards to me. But as I said,
Sorry, Tommy. Were you able to see your family while you were in prison at all?
Yeah, I had family visits. I had visits. Yeah, I had visits. I still had my visits, but so I would get taken out at 8:30 in the morning. Because I was a civil prisoner. They'd open me up and they'd walk me to another segregation unit, which was built in the prisons for the jihadists, maximum security. But there was no jihadists in this segregation unit. It was 16 cells. So for the first 5 months of being in there, they'd let me out at 8:30. They'd walk me over there on my own, put me outside. I'd walk around for 30 minutes on my own. Then they'd lock me in a room, probably twice the size of a cell, but it had a exercise bike and a running machine. I'd exercise for an hour, hour and a half. Then they'd lock me in a shower. I'll be back in my cell by 11, and then they'd open my cell door the next day again at 8:30 in the morning.
So how many hours a day? Bit of a digression, but how many hours a day were you actually alone? Were you actually solitary?
I was on my own 24 hours a day, but I was locked up for 21 hours a day. So I was out for 3 hours, which was better than in 2018, because in 2018, I was on my own 24 hours a day, but I was locked up for 23 and a half hours a day. So this time, because I was a civil offender, they had to give me other rights to get me out of my cell, which, look, what I say is, and it may sound, my biggest worry was how I react when I get out of jail. Because I remember last time, and all the things that I felt and all the things I went through last time are natural consequence of solitary confinement. Quick to aggression, anger problems, personality changes, withdrawal, so isolation. You experience all of these things, and all they wanted to do when I was in there is throw medication. I don't want medication. I don't believe in medication. So my medication is the gym. It's fitness. It's trying to work myself. I'm going for a walk. That's my medication. But that is, and they never should have done it, but they didn't have to do that. Which is what I said to them in jail. You don't have to do this. There was no way they had to lock me up for 18 months for a non-crime, a civil offence. And if they did want to lock me up, my solicitors found a prison in Norfolk that had 40 prisoners, a small facility with no Muslims in, but they wouldn't send me there. They wanted to keep me on solitary confinement because the consequence of solitary confinement is playing with your mind. And it broke me in 2018. It did. It broke me. I went into jail, one person, come out another from the solitary confinement.
When you said that last time, you looked a bit like Ben Gunn. Why was that? Did you not want to have your hair cut or anything?
Looking guy? No. When I come out this time, so I didn't have a mirror. Yes, it didn't bother me. I didn't have a mirror. So I was in a segregation unit. So the block. Now in the block, the cells are not like normal cells. In a prison cell, you usually get a wardrobe. You get all these different things. They're suicide cells when you're down the block, because the only people who go to the block is when you smash up, cut yourself, or you cut people, or you set fires. So then you go to a room in a cell that's unpenetrable. It's unbreakable. So anything in there, you don't have anything. You have a plastic molded chair that can't be broken. You're not allowed anything sharp. So it didn't bother me the way I looked, and I hadn't seen myself for those 7 months. I only saw myself when I got out, and I realised how ginger on my beard was. But,
Julian Assange, he was kept in a very high security environment for totally incomprehensible reasons, in my view. But perhaps it's not so incomprehensible because they were trying to break him too.
I spoke to him in Belmarsh. So when I was in Belmarsh in 2018, I was on it's called the contingency suite. It was built for Ian Huntley. So it's a unit within the unit. You don't see anyone. And when I got out my exercise each day, Julian Assange was at the top. So he was at the window at the top. So I spoke to him only twice in there. And when I spoke to the staff in there, he spoke to me twice. When I spoke to the staff in there, he's gone. They said he's broken. He's gone. Yeah, which I can fully understand, because in my small time I was in there, my mind was gone.
What did you talk with Julian about, or was it just lightweight?
Just lightweight about what was happening in my case, what had just happened, how was he, because he'd done it 6 years at that point. 6 years at that point. I asked him if he wanted me to organise protests when I'm out. I said I can galvanise people. What do you want? Like when I walk out of here. But also at the same time, think about what they did to him. Think about it. They planned to assassinate him, but think about the level. And when they do this, like they're doing it to Lucy Connolly now, Keir Starmer weaponised the judiciary and weaponised the media and weaponised the government against the British public to instill fear in them. So when I'm used as an example. If you speak out, look what we can do to him. Look what we can do to Lucy Connolly. Look what we can do to Peter Lynch. The only problem for them is they underestimate the British spirit. And the British spirit and what's in our DNA is to fight. Historically, they may have tried to feminise every man in this country. They may have tried to weaken every man in this country. But when the men in this country understand where they've come from and who they are, they will understand that it's in their person, it's in our DNA to fight. So a government that wishes to oppress us and wishes to silence us, did it work? It put me in jail. My profile went up here. My film got 167 million views. You lost, Keir Starmer. Your Attorney General lost. We're about to hold a rally on the 13th of September where the numbers are going to suppress any demonstration this country's ever seen. Yeah? And we're mobilising. Do you know what they want? They want us wearing masks and they want us acting like hooligans. Unfortunately, that's not who we are. Yeah? And they don't dictate who we are. So we don't let them infiltrate us. There's no mask covering on ours. I've seen infiltration at English Defence League for years. I've seen it during the riots. Watch the riots. You know the riots after Stockport. Look at the people who set fire to the police station in Sunderland, all wearing head to toe black, not a single bit of body. It's the government, if you ask me. Look up Special Demonstration Squad. It's a squad within the government whose job it is to infiltrate peaceful protests, to provoke violence. And as they provoke violence, now this may sound like a conspiracy theory, but what happened last week at Epping? They bust them in. Now, without social media and without citizen journalists, you wouldn't even have known that. All you'd have seen is the headlines of people clashing, and they'd have said far-right thugs, racists, to take away the legitimacy of the Epping community, the mothers, and I nearly took away the legitimacy of it because I said I was going to go there and then realised what a stupid idea that was, because it fuels the fire, it gives the media the opportunity, it gives the government the opportunity to not listen to them. So I think what's happening now is very encouraging because it's organic, it's community-led, and it needs to stay that way. And organisations, banners, political parties should stay the hell out of it. And let the communities come together and form their own leaders. And I think there's 16 protests tomorrow outside migrant hotels. Keir Starmer thought they'd silenced it. They thought they'd shut everyone up.
Will you be going to any of these protests?
No, I won't. No, I'm sad. To be honest, last week I had the biggest scare I've ever had in my life. Yeah, it's the worst week I've ever had in my life. As I said, I've come out of prison. I haven't been right. I don't have. People say, the lad said it earlier, you're continually being involved. There's lots of videos of you fighting. I said, okay, well, Nigel Farage's got £500,000 security each year. Take that away from him and send him on the foot patrol that I have to walk. I don't have security. I walk through Luton. I walk through London. So last week I was in London all day on my own.
Yeah, we've got to ask you that one, Tommy. We have to ask you what happened in St Pancras the other day.
So in St Pancras, I'd had a positive day. I'd met the stage, PA, screen guys. We'd organised the rally. I'd gone and done Brian Rose. First time I met him, quite an eccentric gentleman. I liked him. Went and met him, done his podcast, come back through, and I don't realise at this time, but as I walk through, a gentleman comes straight in my face, in my face in St Pancras. He's threatening me, he's abusing me. I tried to get away from him. I'm backing off the whole time, saying, mate, fuck off, right? And I was watching him, and I'm on edge anyway. Anyone knows me, my family know. My back's to the wall everywhere I go. If we go out for a meal, back to the wall. I have to be able to see everything. I'm watching everyone. And even someone will say, someone to your right, I said, I've already seen it. Yeah? I'm watching everyone. Because I'm waiting for someone. I've been hit too many times. I've been knocked down too many times. I've been attacked too many times. So I'm constantly waiting. But this gentleman's in my face. I'm moving backwards. I'm trying to get away from him. I warn him so many times. Get out of my space, because I'm looking at him thinking, I know what you're trying to do. He's trying to get within distance of me to come around me so he can punch me. And I warned him, I will defend myself, mate. So get away from me. Now, what happened is that he follows me for 2 minutes through the whole underpass at St Pancras, and he's blocking my way. He's getting in my way. I get round him in the end to get away. I get to the top of the escalators, and then I think, he'll kick me down the stairs. He's coming behind me. So I step back, and as I step back to let him go, he turns. I say, go on, you fat prick, do one. And as he turns round and comes at me. Now, the worrying thing for me is there is a little audio of this, which people didn't know there's an audio. So there's an audio of him screaming at the top of his voice and aggressively charging at me. Yeah. Now, at that point, I've got no choice. I've tried everything. I've tried to negotiate. I've tried the peacemaking. At this point, it's him or it's me. It's me ended up on the floor, it's him that ended up on the floor. Now, unfortunately for him, it's him that ended up on the floor. Now, I didn't savagely beat him. I didn't jump on him. So I defended myself. And I was worried when I saw him. I was worried. The first thing I done was I contacted the police. The first thing I done was contacted the police. In fact, I don't know if you've listened to it. I'll let you can listen to it now if you want. So all these stories that were coming out in the media.
Man, see you later.
I don't have
Enjoy
to.
tomorrow.
You
may disagree with Tommy, but come on, freedom of speech. They don't believe in it. His order started at 2 o'clock. Change the time to 10. I'm not right. Which journalists are you from? From the agencies. Agencies. Which media are you?
But this is so I contact the police straight away.
Yeah.
Can you hear that?
Fucking hell. So I was on the way to get my train home.
and I've had some lads come up starting at me, squaring up to me with his clenched fist. I've stood away, told him to fuck off, told him multiple times just fuck off. He's carried on walking, carried on chatting shit. I got to the top of the stairs and I told him a fat cunt, and then he's turned around, he's gone, yeah, you want to try me? Clenching his fists, turned around. I can't wait for him to knock me out, yeah? He's a big old fat fella. So I've defended myself, and then he's come at me again. But he's ended up asleep on the floor. Now I'm worried about him. I didn't have any other situation. There's nothing else I could have done, yeah? Other than wait to get fucking knocked down. But I don't know if he's all right. I couldn't wait to see if he's all right. Mate, I'm in central London. It's going to be 2 minutes before I'm spotted, and other groups are going to come, Muslims are going to come. I'm on my own. So I've left and got out of there. So I'm making contact with you, Wayne. I don't know what else to do. I've rang my solicitor just to say, look, get me an interview, a voluntary interview. I'll talk to the police. I've got nothing to hide. He come at me. I'm just hoping there's CCTV that shows him aggressively walking towards me with his fist clenched, and then shows what's gone on. But yeah, just making contact. I don't know what else to do, Wayne. Yeah. Now, Wayne is our liaison officer for our demonstrations. Each one is our Scotland Yard link for the police. So I talk to him all the time, yeah, to organise our events. So I contacted him, and then obviously I had a pre-booked trip. I didn't run away, which the media was saying. I booked it 3 weeks before, which I showed the police. And then at 6 o'clock next morning, my solicitors contact the police. What do you want him to do? He's back on Monday. That's fine. Tell him to come in. Now, at this time, I'm seeing forensic tents. I'm thinking the man's dead. And I've been so scared because I'm thinking they'll get rid of the CCTV. It's just going to be me hitting a bloke. But luckily, when I got to interview, he was far worse than I even remembered. One should be prosecuted. He should be prosecuted.
So when he was coming at you, was he saying anything to you?
Yeah, he said he could end me. The first thing he said, I'll end you, you little shit. Yeah, it's like, mate, go away, man. But he was drunk, yeah? And I don't blame him now. I don't blame him. Yeah? Because he has a negative opinion of me based on the media and smear campaign against me. So he doesn't know me. If he spoke to me when he wasn't drunk, he'd probably realise I'm not the guy he thinks I am. Now, I wish him a full recovery. I do, because he had a blood clot in his brain. And I didn't want that. So the worry I had after that, and then I think I had to FaceTime my kids, cry my eyes out, saying I'm gone. I'm going back. They're going to remand me. I know what they're going to do. They're going to hold me on charges. They're going to remand me. I'll spend a year on remand. When I got back and the police played the interview, the full tape's there. So it totally exonerates me, which is why I keep saying, release the tape. Yeah? Let the public see. Because unfortunately, there's many instances like that where I've been forced to defend myself. That doesn't make me a thug. Doesn't make me a hooligan. It makes me a man that's going to defend myself. And unfortunately, I shouldn't be in a position to defend myself. I wish I had them. I wish I had security. But I don't.
There are nutters out there, unfortunately.
I know. I'm one of them. I'm only joking, but that's the reality. It's not safe to do so because even when I'm defending myself, I was nearly looking at 10 years. If there wouldn't have been CCTV, I'll be stitched up. So unfortunately, at the minute, I'm going to go away and I can work from wherever, a place of safety. And unfortunately, I've lived two different lives anyway. Since I don't walk the streets with my kids, I never have. Go in separate cars when I go places in case there's problems. But you know the difficulty, it's really changed. I know this incident just happened this week. I don't really get that much hate, not even from Muslims. Not even that from Muslims. So there's been a change, but obviously, 100 people could shake my hand, only take one to want to punch
me. In your judgment, do you think that there is any prospect of a change of heart from either the media or politicians towards you?
They change like the wind. Yeah? The country's mood changing, they'll change. Listen to Robert Jenrick now, yeah? Compared to he was 3 years ago. Yeah? He was part of government. Yeah? Look how strong he's talking now. Why is he talking strong? Why is he so on that now? Because he knows the mood of the country's changed. Now, thankfully, I've become less toxic, more palatable, thanks to many people, Jordan Peterson, Gad Saad, Elon Musk, people who are just saying it as it is. And I think lots of people who realise they've been lied to about so much. I'm not perfect. The public know I'm not perfect. I'm a working class kid from Luton Town. I've had my history, my own. I never claimed to be an angel polishing my halo. I've never said that. Yeah? But at the same time, the negative flaws or some of the maybe my brashness and my upbringing, I would have stopped after the first punch in the nose, but I didn't. And it's why I continued standing up, because of the upbringing I've had. So I don't apologise for that. There's no videos of me being aggressive or violent or bullying or anything like that. And if I walk out this house tomorrow and I walk down the street in a town centre and someone confronts me and threatens me with violence and I need to protect myself again, I will. I don't want to. It's not a nice feeling. In fact, I shit myself. So I put on a brave face a lot of the time, but it's not nice. I walk places and think, here we go. So I mean, I look everywhere I go, so I have to watch everyone. It's not good. It's not a good feeling. But yeah, I don't know what to do, to be honest. I just want to get through to September 13th. I want to make sure it's a success. I want to make sure it's peaceful. I want to make sure that all the people who are feeling voiceless come together. I want it to be a show of unity. And you see, if 500,000 or 1 million people turn up, it will give courage to many of the people sitting in Parliament who agree that there's a problem and have been scared to say.
Do you think you'll continue your campaign to try to right the wrongs that you perceive in British society now?
I think my position is to wake people up and educate them. I think that I want people to see what I've seen and understand what I understand and the dangers this country faces. And I think I can do that through my journalism. So I've said many times, people never used to judge me as a journalist. Watch my documentaries, watch Panodrama, it's the best expose of the BBC, watch my 5-part series, The Rape of Britain, watch Lawfare, watch any of them. We are good at what we do, yeah, and I have a passion in it, and I enjoy changing people's opinions. When I make a video or make a documentary and I read the comments, I get a buzz of knowing I help wake those people up. So if 500,000 people come to a demonstration in London to celebrate their culture and they felt 2 years ago they couldn't celebrate their culture, my buzz is that I played a part in doing that. As I said, I don't want to be involved in politics. I know I am involved in politics, but I think my place is in journalism, is in creating content and in a cultural movement. If you change the culture, you change the politics. We're changing the culture. Bit by bit, we're changing it through peaceful means, through celebration, through identity, and focusing on our community and our culture. So that's what I want to do. That's what I want the future to be for me. What's the probable future for me? Probably sat back on solitary confinement, unfortunately. Crazily enough, I've got a terrorism charge on the 13th of October. So I don't know.
Oh, so no chance of putting your feet up and just having a glass of whiskey with your slippers on or anything?
I don't sit still. I never have. And do you know what? I wholeheartedly believe in everything I say and do. So the risks I've took, I think the country, if the country doesn't awaken to the problems and we don't solve these problems, we don't have a country. We don't have, you've got 1,000 years of English Christian history in this country, and it's nearly been given away in 70 years. Imagine we as a population, as British men, when you look at the history of Britain, imagine we sat by and didn't do anything, and didn't rise up, and didn't come together, and didn't stand up, because we were scared of being called racist. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. So the time's passed, that's gone, people aren't going to tolerate it anymore. And the other problem is that I don't want to see good migration and good migrants to this country blamed for the problems of a few. Yeah. So the Sikh community, Hindu community, if you go to any of our events on September 13th and understand the diversity of our crowd, yeah, we've bypassed the bullshit of the media. No one buys it. No one buys the racist stick anymore. No one's tolerating it. Jordan Peterson speaking at our next event. Lead politicians from Poland, Germany, Denmark, Belgium, they're all coming. So there's a unifying, something's happening. And there's also a Christian revival happening where we've lost our identity and lost our culture and lost our belief in this country, and a void's been filled, not just by Islam, but by other ideologies, whether it be LGBTQ+, Marxism, communism. They're filling a void. They're filling a void because we've been under attack. Christianity's been under attack. We need to understand where we come from. And where we come from is a Christian culture.
What's your message to the country, Tommy?
Message to you, Lembit. Message to you, Joe. Come down September 13th and experience it yourself. It'd be total opposite to what you would have thought from the media. And my message to people is the time is now. We're running out of time. So send a message to the establishment. Let them know that you're not scared. You're not going to be silent. You're going to exercise your free speech and you're going to unify. And that banner of Unite the Kingdom, I think this is our MAGA. This is our MAGA. And they're not putting it, and it's not going away. So
do let us know in the comments as well. We want to know your opinions because we're about free speech and letting you have the right to listen to people like Tommy and make your own judgment without any filter in between. Thanks to Tommy, thanks to Joe, thanks to the team, and thanks to you for daring to watch and to think for yourself. See you soon.